They say honesty is everything in a relationship, but what if that honesty is costing you your peace, your power, and your emotional safety? Every woman has been taught to lay it all on the table, but not everything sacred should be shared too soon. Some things aren't secrets, they're boundaries. In this speech, we're unpacking 5 things every woman must keep private, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because protecting your peace is not deception, it's self-respect. They say honesty is everything in a relationship, but what if that honesty is costing you your peace, your power, and your emotional safety? Every woman has been taught to lay it all on the table, but not everything sacred should be shared too soon. Some things aren't secrets, they're boundaries. In this speech, we're unpacking 5 things every woman must keep private, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because protecting your peace is not deception, it's self-respect. They say honesty is everything in a relationship, but what if that honesty is costing you your peace, your power, and your emotional safety? Every woman has been taught to lay it all on the table, but not everything sacred should be shared too soon. Some things aren't secrets, they're boundaries. In this speech, we're unpacking 5 things every woman must keep private, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because protecting your peace is not deception, it's self-respect. It unfolds, it grows through shared experiences, not oversharing experiences. There's a rhythm to trust. It begins with small revelations. It builds through honesty in the moment, not a detailed recounting of every chapter in your past. Over time, when someone has proven they can sit with your silence, celebrate your wins, and be present in your low points, you'll know the time is right to let them see more. The most self-assured women don't overshare their emotional pain. They know that true strength isn't in bleeding in front of someone. It's in being able to hold your story with pride and share it only when you know it will be met with grace. It's not about being guarded. It's about being grounded. Grounded in who you are. Grounded in what you need. Grounded in your right to protect your peace. And if someone pushes, becomes impatient, or demands emotional access too early, that's not chemistry. It's control. True connection never pressures. It invites. It allows space. It proves safety not through words, but through presence, through the little moments that show they respect your pace. That kind of connection doesn't rush trust, it earns it. There's also a power in self-containment, in knowing that you don't need to unravel your past to be loved in the present, that you don't need to be fully understood to be fully seen. When you hold your emotional depth with dignity, you attract people who value why. Our inner world, not because you handed it to them, but because they earned the chance to step into it. It's okay to wait, to protect, to stay silent until someone has shown they deserve your truth. You're not playing games, you're playing for keeps. Emotional maturity means knowing that not every man will know what to do with your vulnerability, and that's okay. It's not your job to teach them, it's your job to honor yourself. A woman who learns to protect her emotional blueprint walks differently. She speaks with calm, she chooses with clarity, she doesn't need to prove her pain or perform her past. Her story is not a currency for love, it's a compass for who gets close. And that awareness, that intentionality, that inner strength, it's what keeps her grounded, even when the world wants access she's not ready to give. A woman's standards are a reflection of how she values herself. They are not arbitrary rules, they are boundaries shaped by experience, self-awareness, and clarity of purpose. Yet too often, when those standards are met with confusion or resistance, she feels pressured to explain, justify, or defend them. She begins to overexplain her choices, as if her worth depends on how well she can convince someone else that her boundaries are reasonable. But they are not up for debate. They are not a group project. They exist to protect her peace, not to gain approval. There's a strength in simply stating what is and leaving it at that. I don't accept that behavior. I don't date casually. I don't move that fast. That tone doesn't work for me. These sentences are complete. They don't require a backstory. They don't need supporting evidence. The moment a woman starts over-explaining her values is often the moment she starts negotiating them. And that's where she begins to shrink slowly, almost invisibly, trying to make herself more digestible, more agreeable, more relikable. But shrinking doesn't serve her. It never has. She was never meant to lower her standards to meet someone at their level. She was meant to hold her line and allow the right people to rise. That doesn't mean being cold or inflexible. It means being clear, because clarity is a form of kindness. When a woman knows what she wants and communicates it without apology, she filters out confusion before it begins. There's no need to guess, no mixed signals, no silent frustration, just alignment or misalignment. There's a difference between compromise and self-abandonment. Compromise is healthy. It's part of any mature relationship. But abandoning one's standards to keep someone close, that's not compromise, that's self-betrayal. And often the fear of losing someone leads to this quiet erosion of values. She tells herself it's just one exception, just this once, just until things get more serious. But every time she lowers a boundary to keep someone comfortable, she loses a piece of the foundation she worked so hard to build. Over-explaining standards also creates an unnecessary power dynamic. It hands control to the other person and says, "Here's everything I believe, do you approve?" But respect doesn't come from permission, it comes from presence. When a woman states her expectations and moves on, she communicates confidence. She shows that she's not looking for permission to value herself. She already does. There's also emotional labor in over-explaining. It's draining to constantly clarify your worth, your boundaries, your reasons, and it's unnecessary. People who are emotionally mature and aligned won't need a slideshow presentation to understand the basics of respect, communication, and effort. They'll get it. They'll appreciate it. And if they don't, that's not her cue to talk more. It's her cue to walk away. A woman's time and energy are finite. Every moment spent explaining her standards to someone unwilling to respect them is a moment lost, and often the right person won't need the loan. Explanation. They'll see the value in the boundary itself. They'll meet it without fear or resistance because they've done their own work. They're not intimidated by standards. They're inspired by them. This is especially true in early interactions. The beginning of any relationship sets the tone for everything that follows. If a woman is bending over backwards to explain her boundaries early on, she's setting a precedent that her values are negotiable. And people remember that. They take note, they test, they push. But if she holds steady, if she says, "This is what works for me," and lets her actions match her words, it creates a foundation of respect from day one. It's not about being inflexible, it's about being intentional. A woman with standards knows the difference between being open and being open to manipulation. She knows when to engage and when to disengage. When someone questions her values in a genuine, respectful way, she can respond. But when someone questions them to test her, to challenge her worth, or to wear her down, that's not curiosity, that's control. And it doesn't deserve her time. Standards are not walls, they're filters. They don't keep the right people out. They keep the wrong energy away. They save her from wasted time, from heartbreak, from being pulled into situations that aren't aligned. And the clearer those standards are, the easier it becomes to recognize alignment when it shows up. There's no need to decode mixed signals or wonder if she's asking for too much. Her standard is her standard, and the right person will rise, not run. There's also something deeply empowering about learning to say less, to stop giving people the manual on how to treat you and instead watch how they behave. When you stop over-explaining, you start observing. Who listens? Who respects the line without needing to understand every detail behind it? Who steps out? Without pressure? That clarity doesn't come through more words. It comes through quiet observation and self-trust. She doesn't owe anyone her backstory in order to set a boundary. Her standards don't need a trauma timeline to be valid. She can say no and let it be enough. She can ask for consistency and not feel guilty. She can expect emotional intelligence and not feel high maintenance. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities. They're the bare minimum for building something real. The ability to hold a boundary without needing to explain it is a muscle. It takes practice. At first, the silence may feel uncomfortable. The lack of justification may feel incomplete. But over time, it becomes natural. It becomes peaceful. It becomes powerful. And that's when a woman begins to lead from self-respect instead of seeking reassurance. When she stands firm in what she expects, she shifts the entire dynamic. She's no longer waiting to be chosen. She's choosing. She's not hoping someone sees her worth. She's embodying it. She's not adjusting her values to be accepted. She's allowing alignment to reveal itself. And that energy doesn't need to speak loudly. It speaks through her presence, her clarity, and her calm refusal to beg for understanding. A woman who masters this habit doesn't explain herself to be liked. She expresses herself to be clear. And when clarity meets confidence, there's no need to convince. There's only space for what's meant, what's right, and what aligns with who she truly is. There is a quiet kind of power that comes with financial independence. It doesn't need to be loud, flaunted, or used as a tool of control. It doesn't need to dominate a conversation or be placed on display as a badge of pride. Instead, it sits confidently in the background, steady, strong, and unwavering. A woman who knows how to take care of herself financially holds a power that speaks without words. She knows she doesn't have to tolerate anything that disrespects her peace because she has the means to walk away. That's real freedom. Money is more than currency. It's control, it's choice, it's safety, and it's security. And when a woman keeps her financial independence as quiet power, she protects herself from manipulation while remaining grounded in her value. Not every man needs to know the details of her income, her savings, her investments, or her long-term plans. Not every person who comes close deserves to be handed the keys to the empire she's building. Some things are better observed in action than explained in numbers. That doesn't mean she's hiding. It means she's selective. Financial transparency is earned, just like emotional vulnerability. It requires trust, consistency, and alignment. Until those things are proven, she doesn't need to overshare. Her success, her hustle, her vision, those are personal. They are part of who she is, but not the part that needs to be exposed in order to feel validated or desirable. Keeping financial independence private is not about secrecy, it's about protection. When a woman overshares too soon, she risks attracting people who are interested in what she has, not who she is. Some people use information to gain leverage. Others may feel threatened, and some may even try to diminish her achievements to feel more in control. That's why discretion is powerful. It gives her room to observe without being influenced by someone's reaction to her financial reality. She doesn't need to impress anyone with her lifestyle or her paycheck. True confidence is not performative. It doesn't ask for applause. It doesn't need external approval. A woman rooted in financial security doesn't chase validation. She makes decisions from a place of clarity, not desperation. She's not afraid to split the bill or cover the check, but she also doesn't feel the need to prove her independence by announcing it. There's balance in this approach. She can be generous without being taken advantage of. She can be successful without needing to lead with that success. She can carry wealth without carrying arrogance. When her finances are under control, her standards shift. She no longer tolerates relationships based on dependency or control. She can leave a bad situation without worrying about how she'll survive. That knowledge alone changes how she shows up in dating, in business, and in life. Financial independence gives her options, and options give her power, the ability to choose what aligns with her values, not just what's available. She's no longer stuck. She's not forced to settle. She doesn't stay for survival. She stays for love, for peace, for growth. And that's when the quality of her relationships improves, because she's not relying on someone else to complete her life. She's already whole. When a woman has her own, she moves differently. She's less reactive. She's more intentional. She's not easily impressed by surface-level gestures because she understands the value of hard work, discipline, and long-term thinking. Her decisions are made from strength, not scarcity. She doesn't need to rush. She doesn't need to settle. She can build at her own pace, knowing that she's already secured her foundation. There's also a deeper emotional benefit. Financial independence builds self-trust. Every time she pays a bill, invests wisely, saves intentionally, or handles her money with purpose, she reinforces the belief that she can depend on herself. That belief is priceless. It's not just about money, it's about self-respect. It's about knowing that she has her own back even when everything else is uncertain. This quiet power also teaches boundaries. She learns to say no to financial entanglements that don't make sense. She's careful about who she gives access to. She doesn't rescue others financially at the expense of herself. She's generous, but she's not irresponsible. Her giving comes from overflow, not obligation. And when she shares her financial world with someone, it's because they've earned that place, not because she needs them to validate her worth. There's freedom in being able to walk away, freedom in not needing to stay where she's not respected, freedom in knowing she can build, rebuild, or begin again without asking for permission. That freedom isn't always visible. It doesn't always show up in luxury or lavishness. Sometimes it's in the quiet confidence of knowing her rent is paid, her future is funded, and her life is hers to shape. It's also about legacy. Financial independence isn't just for today, it's for the future. She's building not just for herself, but for the generations after her. She understands the importance of ownership, of investing, of teaching others the value of financial literacy. And because she's walked the road herself, she becomes a guide, a role model, and a protector for others who follow. When a woman masters her money, she masters her choices. She doesn't need to depend on someone to fund her dreams. She funds them herself. She doesn't need to wait for a partner to live the life she wants. She creates it. She doesn't need to accept crumbs. She's capable of providing her own table. That mindset doesn't just empower her, it transforms her. And the most powerful part, she doesn't need to announce it. She doesn't need to prove it. Her actions speak, her stability speaks, her peace speaks. And when the right person comes along, they'll recognize it, not as a threat, but as an inspiration. Someone who sees her independence not as competition, but as compatibility. Financial independence is not about proving anything to anyone. It's about being free to live fully, love wisely, and walk away peacefully when something doesn't align. It's not something she needs to showcase. It's something she lives. Quietly, confidently, completely. Emotional vulnerability is a sacred thing. It's the softest, most unguarded part of who a woman is, and it's not something to be handed out freely or prematurely. It holds power, depth, and meaning, but only when it's protected and shared in the right environment. Too often, women are taught to lead with their wounds, to offer up their deepest feelings as a way to create closeness or to prove trust. But vulnerability without discernment is not intimacy, it's exposure. Not every man deserves access to her inner world. Not every moment of connection is an invitation to unravel all that she carries. Sometimes withholding emotional vulnerability isn't about being distant or guarded. It's about being wise. It's about recognizing that true emotional safety is earned, not assumed. There has to be consistency before there can be transparency. There has to be evidence of care, patience, and presence before she opens the parts of herself that carry old scars, private fears, and sacred hopes. The idea that vulnerability automatically leads to closeness is incomplete. Vulnerability in the wrong hands doesn't lead to intimacy, it leads to manipulation. There are those who will use her emotions to gain control, who will twist her pain to exploit her trust, who will take her openness as weakness instead of courage. That's why discernment matters. That's why she must learn to hold space for herself first, to sit with her feelings before offering them to someone who may not be ready to receive them with care. Being emotionally intelligent doesn't mean spilling every thought or fear. It means knowing when to speak, when to hold back, and how to protect her emotional well-being in situations that haven't yet proven safe. Some people listen to respond, not to understand. Some people use vulnerability as a tool to gain leverage. That's why emotional privacy is not just healthy, it's necessary. There's strength in being able to feel deeply without the need to always be seen in those depths. to process, to journal, to reflect, to cry alone, not because she's isolating herself, but because she's nurturing her own healing. Her emotional world is not a public forum. It's a sanctuary, and just like any sacred space, it needs boundaries, it needs quiet, it needs reverence. A woman who guards her vulnerability understands that pacing matters, that opening up is not about testing a connection, it's about honoring it once it's real. She doesn't use her pain to prove her worth. She doesn't share her story hoping it will make someone stay. She knows that her healing isn't a performance. It's a personal journey, and only those who walk beside her with gentleness and empathy get to witness its fullness. In romantic relationships, this becomes even more crucial. Early emotional dumping, sharing traumas, insecurities, and unhealed wounds too soon can create a false sense of intimacy. It can fast-track a bond that hasn't yet been tested by time, consistency, or action. Real closeness isn't built on shared pain alone. It's built on emotional safety, mutual respect, and the ability to hold space without trying to fix, rescue, or control. There's also the matter of balance. A woman can be warm without being emotionally exposed. She can be kind without being open about every battle she's faced. She can be emotionally available without laying all her emotional cards on the table. Emotional maturity is being able to show up with presence and care without needing to bleed to be seen. Some people interpret emotional privacy as coldness, but it's not. It's clarity. It's the quiet awareness that love doesn't require the sacrifice of one's emotional safety. It's knowing that trust must be earned, not rushed, that love must be tested, not assumed, that emotional openness is not about timing, it's about alignment, and until alignment is clear, vulnerability can wait. She's allowed to keep parts of herself sacred, to say, I'm not ready to talk about that, to change the subject, to hold back tears in front of someone who hasn't yet proven they know how to hold them. She's allowed to take her time, to wait, to watch, to learn, not from a place of fear, but from a place of value. Because she values her peace, her growth, her energy, and she refuses to give them away just to feel temporarily close to someone. There's a powerful difference between emotional honesty and emotional exposure. Emotional honesty means showing up as you are, with integrity. It means being true to your feelings and communicating with compassion and clarity. But emotional exposure is when a woman feels she must share everything in order to be accepted. That's not connection. That's self-betrayal dressed as vulnerability. And when a woman learns to separate the two, she becomes more confident in her emotional world. She no longer feels guilty for setting emotional boundaries. She doesn't apologize for needing time to open up. She doesn't feel weak for having feelings or strong for hiding them. She simply honors them by giving them space, privacy, and discernment. In friendships, this wisdom is equally important. She begins to notice who genuinely supports her and who only shows up during chaos. She sees who listens with care and who listens out of curiosity. She recognizes the difference between someone who asks questions to connect and someone who asks questions to judge. And as she learns to trust herself, she learns who is safe to trust in return. Her emotional vulnerability is not for public consumption. It is not a shortcut to being liked, loved, or understood. It is a gift, a privilege. And when it's treated as such, it becomes a source of power, not pain. She knows that the right people will earn that access, and when they do, she'll give it freely, but never at the cost of herself. Choosing emotional privacy isn't about building walls, it's about building filters. Filters that protect her from pouring her heart into spaces that aren't ready to receive it. Filters that protect her growth from being misunderstood or dismissed. Filters that keep her grounded while she continues to heal, to evolve, and to love. There's a quiet magic in knowing what to hold and when to release it. In having the emotional intelligence to say, this is mine right now, and I'm not ready to share it yet. That's not weakness, that's self-respect. That's inner strength. That's wisdom born from experience. And when the time comes, when she meets someone who listens without judgment, who stays without condition, who holds space without trying to fix, then and only then will her vulnerability become a bridge instead of a burden. not because she needed to be saved, but because she chose to be seen on her own terms in her own time, with her heart fully protected,